Oh, it's so heavy-handed.
Sucks.
Welcome to SinCast, presented by Cinemasins.
All right, everybody, welcome to the SinCast. This is Chris Atkinson from Cinemasins, joined by Jonathan Watkins from Cinemasins.
Hello, hello.
And today we'll be doing a mini-pod.
Fantasy pod?
Fantasy Island. Movie that made way more money than I thought it would over the weekend.
I saw this. Yeah, we didn't get a chance. They didn't have Thursday night screening, so we couldn't see this to review it last week. And I went like that Friday afternoon, and I mean, it was packed. Like I was like, well, it was Valentine's Day, so that probably had a little bit to do with it. But I was shocked because usually like on Friday afternoons, I can find a seat by myself, and I don't have anybody right next to me. And but that was not the case on this particular Friday afternoon. So. Yeah,
I went on what was this when I saw this? I think it was Sunday night, and it was pretty packed.
Wow. Yeah, what it made like 12 million, 14 million.
Yeah, it made 12 million.
Made its budget back basically.
Yeah, I was when the trailers for this hit, and then that it didn't have Thursday night showings. I thought this is probably going to be one of those $6-7 million openings, but it was surprisingly big.
I wonder what the Thursday night. I don't know what the reasoning behind that is because it's so rare that they don't do them. When they don't do them, I'm just like, I never know what the reasoning behind that is.
So, from what I understand, I have never read any particular thing about it, but
yeah.
It lets them have an extra day to add into the weekend.
Yeah,
they don't put it in as Thursday. They put it in as Friday.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So that's the main reason why they do that. They can get a whole bunch of money on a Thursday night that, I don't know. I've always wondered if you didn't come out with this on if you'd come out with Fantasy Island on Thursday night, wouldn't you have still probably made 12 million? That's what my assumption is.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
But
go ahead. Sorry.
The problem is that I think that especially with movies like this, they want to avoid that Twitter thing that happens on Thursday. Yeah, where everybody's like, "Well, this sucks," and then they don't get anything on the weekend. So they want to have that Friday as their biggest day, and
Yeah, because Thursday's actually like if you go like on boxoffice.com or something, Thursday night money has become a new thing. Like they compare that to other Thursday nights. Like it's become the new opening. I mean, it's really funny they say movies open on Friday now because they really open on Thursday.
Yeah, I think they're just. I mean, basically they're just cheating on the Thursdays. Yeah. That's all it is. That's all it comes down to.
And I don't even remember when that started. I remember back in the day when we were kids. This is off subject, but I remember back in the day when we were younger. Like occasionally they do like in the summer. Like I remember Batman Returns. I think that was one I saw like Thursday at 8, but it was rare.
Yeah, it was something big that had to happen.
And then there for a while they were doing just midnight showings, and then eventually it just got to be where. And now you even get 4:00 showings for like kids movies and stuff. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Anyways,
when I was working in projection and everything, it started off as midnight shows, like Lord of the Rings, a 3-hour movie was midnight, and we'd sell out.
Oh yeah,
and
all the Harry Potter movies.
Yeah, and then they somewhere they were like, well, midnight's kind of crazy. Let's make it 10 o'clock, and then just count it as Friday. And now they've just we're done with the subterfuge. We're just going to come out with it at 7 o'clock or 6 o'clock or whatever, and just count that on Friday.
And then the Wednesday movies open on Tuesday now.
That's correct. This Fantasy Island is I guess a semi sort of TV remake into a movie. It's not really like the show though. It's in name only.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean the basic concept. They did actually do a reboot of this show in '98 with Malcolm McDowell.
I remember that.
And that only lasted like 13 episodes, and it wasn't very good. But I remember that had kind of a I think the show always had a supernatural element, obviously the way the island worked, but I think they played more into it with the Malcolm McDowell. But it was almost like a comedy versus like dark comedy.
Yeah.
This goes into eventually it gets into like just straight on horror territory.
This is like if you were to combine Lost and Hostel.
Yeah.
It's basically what it comes down to.
Yeah, well, yeah, and then have like seriously heavy-handed like a love story and
and now I just realized it's Lost and Hostel, so it should be Lostal.
There you go. That's what we called it.
Yeah, it's a more horror element of it of Fantasy Island. To be honest, I didn't really watch the show back in the day, the Ricardo Montalban, Herbie Villachez. I watched the opening a lot. Like I was a big fan of like watching the openings of TV shows back in the day.
Yeah.
So I never really don't think I saw the show.
Because I want to say it was a Friday night show or Saturday. It was one of those two. It was a weekend kind of thing. I remember watching it. I don't remember like specific episodes, but it was basically an anthology show. Mm-hmm. You'd have different people come to the island each week, and they were usually famous people at that time or well-known people at that time, like
was it
like Heather Thomas or whatever.
Was it sort of like going off the success of Love Boat where you
and I believe those were back to back for a while. Yeah,
that's probably right.
Yeah.
I feel ashamed because I lived in the era that those shows were running, but I couldn't tell you much about them.
No, they're not memorable.
Yeah.
For me.
So, Fantasy Island is directed by Jeff Wadlow, who did Truth or Dare. I saw that recently.
He did Cry Wolf from 2005 also.
Cry Wolf. Now, if it came out in 2005, I saw it.
John Bon Jovi's in that. It's a horror. It's a straight up slasher movie. It's kind of, but I can't think of the actress's name that's in that. Jared Padalecki's in it. It takes place at like a boarding school. These kids play this game, kind of like Truth or Dare.
Yeah.
These kids play this game called Cry Wolf, where one of them is like supposed to be a killer, and they have to figure out who it is, and then people start really dying, or do they?
Yeah.
And it's.
I don't remember anything about it.
I don't know. I'll tell you, this is the worst of the three that we're going to talk about today, but I feel like all three of those kind of have he has a very similar style in that I feel like he's very competent, but I don't feel like he adds, I don't know, it like the movies never quite get to where they need to go to be, because like Truth or Dare is a perfectly watchable movie, but it's not very good.
Right. And yeah, you're right. Truth or Dare is definitely better than this. I just don't remember anything about Cry Wolf.
Yeah, for sure. He did Kick-Ass 2 also, which is
he wrote it, right? Or did he direct it?
I think he directed it.
Did he direct it?
Yep.
Okay, so what do we want to get into before we get into spoilers?
Yeah, I think this is mostly spoilers.
I'm going to give this a solid D, I guess.
That's very fair.
Again, I'm gonna kind of be consistent with this. If the movie is not The Room bad, I'm not gonna give it an F.
Yeah.
But just know that this is as close as F as it gets. When it comes to these big movies that aren't exactly Room levels of bad.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, it's not good. It's not good. I find it oddly watchable though. Like in at least parts of it, like I could totally see myself watching this again.
So non-spoiler part of this,
yeah,
I feel like it's great. It's very watchable at first because there's something fun about them going to the island, having the fun, and like you're like, oh, I'm on vacation with these guys as well. And then it turns into the story, and that's where problems come from.
Well, we'll get into the ending more in spoilers. I did actually have some fun with that, but not in a good way. But yeah, but that might be where some of the watchability comes from me. But the biggest, I'm going to give it a C-. So I'm not that far off from what you're saying. Mm-hmm. The biggest problem I had with it, I think, is that it feels like a freaking TV show for the majority of the runtime. Mm-hmm. I mean, it feels like a pilot pilot on the CW.
Yeah.
And I think part of that is the cast, because most of the cast, with the exception of Michael Pena, most of the cast is more known for television. Now, Maggie Q's been in movies.
Yeah.
Lucy Hale's been in movies, but they're more known, I think, for television.
So what is Maggie Q on, like, what is she on?
She was on Nikita, was like, I guess, her big show,
Okay.
which was...
Because I know her more from movies.
Oh,
I don't think I've really ever seen her on TV.
I mean, she was in Mission Impossible 3, and then, but obviously for the last, like, I don't know, to me, she's more memorable for movies because I watched Nikita, and then she was on this show with Dylan McDermott. I think it was called Stalker. It only lasted a season. It was kind of like trying to play off of Criminal Minds and stuff like that, but it was just super disturbing. But yeah, she's in Divergent, and she's in the Divergent movies. I don't know. I feel like she should have a bigger movie career than she does. Though.
Yeah, well, and even in Divergent, she's just I think she's just the doctor or whatever in that, right? Isn't she the one that tells her?
Yes, she's Tori. She's like the tattooed doctor or whatever. Yeah. I guess you're right. I guess she has been more. Oh, she was on Designated Survivor. That was another one.
Okay.
But I just feel like they could throw her like in an X-Men movie or something like give her something. And then also you had Mike Vogel, who plays a supporting character, but he was in Under the Dome, and he was in one of those SEAL team shows. I don't even know if it's still on. They had like 3 or 4 SEAL team shows a couple years ago. But then like Kim Coates pops up in this. So I mean, it has
Canadian legend Kim Coates.
Yeah, so it has like this very TV style cast. So I think that probably factors into it. But even the way it plays out, like there's A, B, and C plots, and there's all this kind of stuff. It does turn into more of a movie at the end, but it definitely felt like more of a just kind of a dull pilot for 2/3 of it, and that I would probably never watch episode 2 of.
I think you're right. I think this is. I think it does play like a pilot.
But none of the actors really get to do anything. Lucy Hale gets to have the most fun, I would say.
Probably.
I'm not sure it's a positive thing necessarily, but I mean, I can't imagine what she's working with. She's a perfectly fine actress. My wife and I've seen every episode of Pretty Little Liars. That's a really bizarrely fun show that I actually think you would love.
No, yeah.
It's very soapy, but it's also very like it gets pretty dark and creepy, and it's so over the top that it just kind of becomes insanely fun.
I do love Lucy Hale. And she was in Truth or Dare as well.
Yep.
But yeah, I kind of root for Lucy Hale, not because I root for her because I think she's from Memphis, and I don't know if she may have been just born there and then moved later or whatever.
She was born Karen Lucille Hale in Memphis, Tennessee.
Yeah, so I always these Tennessee actors like Reese Witherspoon and Samuel L. Jackson and Morgan Freeman and somewhat Quentin Tarantino and all these people who have spent time in Tennessee.
Yeah.
I always sort of root for them, and when I ever see them in a movie like this, it's just kind of like, oh man, come on.
And I just read she started off as a singer. I had no idea because obviously I didn't watch the show, but when American Idol was really famous, they did a summer show called American Juniors, and apparently she was a contestant on that. That's really interesting. Yeah. But I know she's recorded some. But she mostly does TV. She just started a Riverdale spinoff just started based on the character Katie Keene, and she's playing that character. I think my wife's watching it because my Meredith loves Lucy Hale, which is I think she's good.
Yeah.
And I like you. She's one of those. I didn't know about the Memphis connection, but I do kind of root for her.
Well, yeah, and like the girl who plays Nancy on Stranger Things is from Nashville.
Oh, I didn't know that either.
So like anytime these actors come up, I'm just rooting for them to be, in great stuff. But anyway, let's go on to spoilers for Fantasy Island because that's the only real way to talk about this movie.
No spoilers!
Kevin Spacey is Kaiser Soze.
Luke's father is actually Darth Vader. She's the sister and the daughter. They just
No. I'm reading the books.
So where do we want to start with this? I feel like Lucy Hale's character in this, I feel like none of her actions make any sense at all.
No, it's interesting. So I mean, do we just want to go ahead and just divulge what she is?
Well, we're in spoilers.
Oh, okay, that's true. So we find out so when this movie kind of becomes a movie, it essentially goes, like I said, it's kind of this weird, like, meandering pilot for like the first 2/3, which feels like a Fantasy Island episode. Everybody has their own fantasy. We're seeing how it unfolds. Mm-hmm. Lucy Hale's specifically involves that she was bullied by this girl. I can't remember who played her.
It's Portia Doubleday, who's in Her. You may know her from Her, but I don't know. Is there another?
Well, it wasn't a big movie, but when Michael Cera was.
Youth
in Revolt.
Yeah, Youth in Revolt,
which is not a very good movie, but they're both. I remembered her from that.
Yeah.
But So she gets down, and then she's in it's like a torture chamber. She's got like a machine in front of her where she can control things, and then the Portia Doubleday is in the other room, chained in a chair. And at first she says she doesn't know what's going on. She just thinks it's like a what do you call it? She thinks it's like a animatronic or something.
Hologram.
Hologram. And then she eventually realizes it's real. I don't know exactly what makes her. Oh, because the boyfriend.
Yeah, because
her husband.
The video of her cheating on her husband goes to all the Facebook stuff, and then you see her husband answering the phone.
Yeah.
And getting pissed off and all that. So.
And once she realizes it's real, she actually saves her, and then they go run off the island. They're trying to get off the island, but you find out at the end that. Everyone's fantasy, everyone has been brought there because her character is actually doing this big fantasy where she wants to see all these people killed, tortured. I don't know.
So there's
the Lucy Hale character is behind it all.
She had one date with this one dude in an apartment building that got burned down. Maggie Q's responsible for it because she left something on there. I think the guy that she dated was like roommates with maybe the
with Ryan Hansen. I didn't even mention him from Veronica Mars, and it's the
Jimmy
guy
O Yang from Silicon Valley.
And Crazy Rich Asians.
But they were the roommates who ran out. And then there's a cop who didn't come help.
Yeah, that's Austin Stoll.
And so like there's all that. I don't know how she figures all that out after the fire. By the way, but
and you find out I guess she went nuts after that girl bullied her.
Yeah. She used to be like apparently not attractive and very like nerdy and stuff and Portia Doubleday took some letters that she wrote, some embarrassing notes of some sort.
Yeah, she was seeing a psychiatrist, and the psychiatrist recommended that she write letters to the people that affect her in whatever way. And then she found the letters and she posted them for everybody.
Posted them all around the school.
And they called her like Psycho Girl or something like that. It's very much like a slasher film kind of. That's what this movie turns into, like a slasher film essentially with like 15 minutes left.
Anyway, this is what's gets to me about this is that if this is her big fantasy, I don't know why halfway through torturing the one girl who started all this, she's like, "Oh my God," and wants to stop it.
She says she makes a comment to her that she wanted her to believe she saved her, and she wanted her to. I'm just saying this is what the movie presents it as. And I couldn't figure out either because when she's in the... I thought about it later, but at the time I was thinking back and I was like, but when she's in the room, she's by herself. So she's not talking to anybody. Mm-hmm. So her reacting like, oh my God, this is real. The only thing I could even remotely think of is that she's videotaping it. And maybe she was going to use that for something. So she's acting at that point. But it's very thin. Even if you look at it like that.
The only way that makes sense... is just for movie purposes for you for an audience to be fooled. That's the only way it makes sense, because otherwise you would go ahead and torture her to death and then you would go around either watching everybody else die and that's your fantasy and then you get to leave. None of this makes I wanted her to make her believe that I saved her. Doesn't do it for me. I'm sorry.
No, I don't think there's a level of I mean, I don't know. Maybe somebody that's really into like that knows this stuff better than us will say something. But I don't know that there's a level of psychopath that I know of that would. I mean, like you said, she would either just torture her or not do anything.
There's no point. There's no point in letting her go, saving her. I mean, even risking her own life to do it. Which is, I believe, something that, you would never do. You would never do that. And plus, they get down into the island where the magical reflection thing comes and tells you what your fantasy is and everything. She's down there before then, and none of the others. Like, it should be revealing the truth right then and there at the first time she runs it. But all we see is Portia Doubleday getting tortured, and I don't know if we see anybody else. Do we see like all the other characters in that?
I mean, you do, like, I think when they first discover it, you see that, you see Portia Doubleday's fantasy, oddly enough, which was, like, getting back with her husband. I don't even know what that was about, because she didn't actually have a fantasy, but it showed him.
Well, I think it's supposed to read whatever fantasy. It doesn't matter if you've applied.
Oh, okay, I gotcha. I honestly can't remember if we see anybody else's. I think maybe
you do. Maybe we do go through the whole thing, and maybe that's an early clue that it should be. You know, if she's seeing all the other people, I just didn't pay much. I guess I didn't pay much attention.
We should also talk about the other fantasies because they are super uninteresting.
They are so stupid.
Yeah.
Holy fucking shit. This is now look. Like I said, I get into the whole like. This is why they keep making these movies. I don't know if this was shot in Hawaii or not, or somewhere, but this is why they shoot movies in Hawaii a lot. The actors love going out there and having a vacation while they work, essentially. But like also, I feel like that's just attractive for general audiences to come in and be like, I'd like to go to Hawaii for a while, and so like that's what I got into, the vibe of it for a while.
They shot it in Fiji.
Okay,
but same thing.
So they shot it in Fiji, and it's one of those things where at the beginning you're like, okay, I can get along with this fantasy thing. And there was that creeping, I know we're in a horror movie sensation where I'm like, none of this is going to last. None of this so-called fun is going to last. And it's just, the Jimmy O Yang and Ryan, is Ryan Hansen?
Yeah, Ryan Hansen.
Have the fantasy of being at like some big, huge pool party. And Ryan Hansen, of course, wants to have the hot supermodels. Meanwhile, Jimmy O Yang is gay, so they have a bunch of gay supermodels.
Yeah,
around.
that was actually kind of a funny reveal though, where because you don't know he's gay until that point. And he's like, "Oh, I got you covered," and then he goes over and you see all the guys. I have a question about that though. So I don't know like what they think is actually going on, because when they get there, they're like, "Oh, I bet they use holograms or something like that." But when they get to that house, they have to be like, "These are real people or something. They're actors. There's something." I mean, I get the young male fantasy of, oh my God, Charlotte McKinney wants to fuck me. Yeah. But as an adult, which Ryan Hansen he's got to be like in his 30s or something in this movie. I don't know. Even if he's dumb, he still has to be like, what is going on here? Like, I don't know. Like, I mean, I'm not. I don't know. Like, it just seems like a weird thing. Like, I mean, when you're
and you see that especially with Maggie Q, because she realizes she knows for a fact that it's not real.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And that's a super weird thing too. If the island is supposed to reveal to you what your utmost fantasy is, because all they do is fill out like some card. I don't think they write down what their fantasy is.
No, and in fact, Maggie Q even has to tell him, like, he's writing it down as she's talking to him. Like, she apparently just put something basic, I don't know, or something generic, and then he's like, you've got to give me more details.
Yeah, and so that's what they come up with out of all that, and it's supposed to reveal the true thing, and apparently her true fantasy, which actually turns out not to be true, is that she wants to say yes to the guy who asked her to marry him.
Yeah.
And it rewinds 5 years ago to some restaurant where she said no, and she decides to say yes. They even they get to a point where like they've been married for almost like 10 years in this fantasy or something like that.
Yeah, they have a kid, and
they have a kid. They have and then she's not able to enjoy it, and she goes to Michael Pena and she's like, "This is not what I wanted." And he goes, "You have," and the rule is you have to. This was a funny part of the movie. He says something to all of them at the beginning, saying, "Your fantasy may not be how you imagined it, but you have to go through the have to go through the entire fantasy.
It has to run its course." Yeah,
and then he tells that to Jimmy O Yang later, and Jimmy O Yang's like, "Well, nobody knew what the fuck that meant."
Yeah,
and but like
that was funny.
Yeah, but yeah, she gets through this huge fantasy, and then she's like, I want to change. Convinces him to change it, and then the real fantasy is that she goes back and saves dude from burning,
or tries to. Actually, doesn't even.
Well, yeah,
save
she
him.
doesn't do it, but that's her fantasy, is to do that,
and that was super contrived, because that's just so now all of a sudden we know this story.
Yes.
I like the idea of. I like the idea of the twist being that they're all actually in somebody else's fantasy, but the movie doesn't do it well.
No, you have to do something other than this. Like it's hard to. I'm not going to sit here and give a whole bunch of suggestions.
No.
Because you just have to do something other than this. You have to make the fantasies connect in a more believable way.
Yeah.
And we didn't even talk about the cop dude whose fantasy is to
Austin Stoll is the actor.
His fantasy is to be a. What is the?
He wants to be a war hero, basically, because his dad was.
And so he ends up being, like he's ends up running into his dad and his squad that ends up getting killed.
Yeah,
and he has this long time of this back and forth of trying to make him believe that I'm your son who's grown up. And
it's so heavy-handed.
Sucks. And
I mean, it's not a bad idea, but it's just executed so poorly.
But then then like these fantasies keep somewhat interacting with each other, but they're not really.
Well, and then the Ryan Hansen, Michael O Yang one, I guess that's just, and maybe that's a pretty normal fantasy for a lot of people, where they would just be like, I just want to party, have sex, do drugs, I just want no consequences, that kind of thing. And then they even rip off the fucking Brendan Fraser Bedazzled movie, which I thought was hilarious. I don't know if they did this intentionally, but that's immediately what I thought of, because what happens is they're supposed to be like these wealthy people, so then these like bad guys show up to rob them. And then Michael Pena even makes the comment like, I find that most people, when they get wealth, then they have other people trying to take it from them. And that's one of the things in Bedazzled, one of the wishes Brendan Fraser gets is that he's wealthy, but he's like a drug lord. That's how he got his wealth.
Yeah, that's
right.
I
mean, which is a crazy movie. I haven't thought about that movie in
the only thing I remember about Bedazzled is the one where he's a sports star and what's her name? I can't remember her name. Asking him questions as a reporter, and then like I guess his dick becomes visible.
Yeah,
and his dick is small.
Yeah,
and it's right in front of this girl that he likes and everything, and he's like, oh come on,
he took all the drugs or whatever.
Yeah, it's Monkey's Paw-esque. I guess.
Yeah, very much so.
But yeah, again, that whole thing, like.
Although I love seeing Kim Coates.
Kim Coates is great. Kim Coates has the all-time best bad line reading ever in a movie.
Resident Evil,
whatever it was. It was that first 3D one that they came out with.
Yeah, I don't remember which one.
He says something like, "What is he?" All I remember is him saying "face." Like,
yeah, he says, "I want to." Oh my God, what is he? Yeah,
it's like, "I want to cut up your beautiful face," or some crap like that.
It's hilarious.
Kim Coates is in everything.
Yeah, he's awesome.
That whole, and I don't even understand even why, if they're in the middle of someone else's fantasy, I guess it's because they're also in their fantasy, but why they even have a chance to get out of that. Like, they seem to have a chance to actually win in this fantasy, which they shouldn't if it's Lucy Hale's the whole time.
Yeah, I don't really get that either. And Ryan Hansen actually gets killed I don't know how I said it like that. Gets killed in that scene, although he comes back at the end, which is really dumb.
Yeah. It's a stupid scene.
Oh my God, and Damn it, the tattoo thing.
Oh, Jimmy O Yang. Yeah, he's so
they call him T the whole time.
They
right?
call him T, and of course, God, it's getting to the point now where if we watch a movie we watch a franchise type movie and somebody starts being called by one letter, we should just eventually just go ahead and make the connection.
I felt so stupid for not thinking about that, and then at the end I'm like, oh no.
Well, it's because this movie is not set up as an actual straight up.
And he had an assistant, the woman who ends up, and Michael Pena is actually not bad in this. He's very much doing like a Ricardo Montalban performance. Like the suit and everything, and his assistant, who we end up finding out is his late wife, who I guess just dies over and over and comes back, which is horrible.
I guess, yeah, it's ridiculous.
I don't know why anybody had to get, like, Maggie Q finally gets through to him about that. Like, how did it take this long for you to realize that's not the worst fucking thing ever to do to somebody? But she says, like, the plane at the beginning. So I just kind of assumed she was the tattoo of this movie.
Yeah.
And so, no, was not expecting Michael.
Well, and he's a part of the island, too. It's not like he's on this fantasy thing, so you're not expecting him to eventually be the guy's assistant. But, like, at some point, I don't know, we're just every time there's a franchise movie, we're just going to have to, somebody's being called by some weird name or something, but we should just assume that they're a franchise character.
And the other weird thing about this movie too is the genre itself, because like I think the fact that it's Blumhouse, even though Blumhouse has done non-horror movies, I mean they did Whiplash, which I think Austin Stoll was actually in Whiplash, but they did Whiplash, but and the preview pretty much making it out to be a horror movie. Like, this isn't a horror movie for a long time. It really doesn't become a horror movie until it kind of turns into, like I said, a slasher movie at the end, even though nobody really dies. Lucy Hale dies. I mean, some of the Michael Rooker's in this fucking movie.
Yeah.
He's like the crazy guy that's like hiding on the island.
Yeah, he was, I guess, undercover, and he did his fantasy, and then he realized people actually die here, and then he just kind of broke away, and now he's been living on the island for 2 weeks apparently, but he looks like he's been there for 30 years.
Oh yeah, no, he looks like fucking Lawrence Fishburne in Predators. So it doesn't even turn into a horror movie until like that last like 15 minutes. Also, this movie is almost 2 hours long. This movie is way too long. This movie should be like 75, 80 minutes.
Yeah.
Like maybe 90.
Yeah.
But they have to set up all these boring ass fantasies.
I know.
So it takes them so long to do that.
If we were rewriting this, and that's not what criticism's about, but if we were rewriting this, I think just broad strokes, I would make all the different fantasies way more exciting.
Maybe even cut out one of them.
Yeah, maybe even cut out one of them. But like, make them all where they seem like they're really awesome and everything, and then you pull the rug out in a more like, I don't know, I mean, even the Maggie Q one, how was that ever? I mean, that one's just the weirdest one to me. That one's not even going to. There's no way for her to die in that one that I can think of.
I don't know, unless it was just. I mean, my impression was that Lucy Hale's fantasy was to get them on that island. So to get them on that island, I guess they had to create their own fantasies. But that also doesn't make sense, because her fucking nemesis, they kidnap her.
Yeah.
Because she's part of Lucy Hale's fan. I mean, somebody didn't really think through this
No.
well.
I just kept thinking, how is Maggie Q gonna die? What is the thing in this that puts her in danger? We know in the one fantasy the guy is at war, so that's his danger. Yeah. The other guys are gonna get robbed by people. Was there one other one in there?
No, just Lucy Hale's.
Lucy Hale's, but Lucy Hale is the mastermind, quote unquote.
Yeah.
I was sitting there going, what? Maggie Q actually, if of all the people, is probably the one that she would want revenge on the most. Yeah. Because she's the one who left whatever it was on that burned through her apartment or whatever. Yeah. That seems like to me to be the one thing that she should. I was just sitting there going, how is she supposed to die? How is she supposed to run into them? And it just turns out to be that, oh, I hate my fantasy, so let me try some other thing.
Yeah, which was completely out of character. And like I said, they just had to have that so we could see that. So we weren't just all of a sudden like, what are you talking about, a burning building? What the fuck?
If this is if you had an actual visual representation, like a symbolically of the script, it's a bunch of like, crumpled paper taped together.
Yeah.
Like, oh, well, I don't know how we solve this problem. Let's just put this here, and then forget about how many other problems they caused by doing that.
Maybe I should have given this a D. I'll explain a little bit why I upped it a little bit, but the what was I gonna say? Also, like, what are the chances that she even remembers that? Because I mean, Lucy Hale's whole thing about bringing them here is that she feels like they don't give a shit, and that they don't realize that they destroyed this man and they destroyed her life. So I mean, if Maggie Q doesn't think of that, like, none of them are even. I mean, they might not even remember any of that.
Yeah.
And we definitely wouldn't know it.
Well, and I kept sitting there. The cop character, the Austin Stoll guy. I was sitting there going, okay, I guess he's not brave for running into the burning building, but that's not his job.
It's not. It's 100%. In fact, he should not be doing that.
No, he shouldn't be. And I was sitting there going, if that was a firefighter, yeah, but not a cop. I don't understand that at all. The roommates, I don't know exactly. Did they just not warn the roommate?
They thought he was gone.
Yeah.
And I mean, and that's legit. Like, if you think somebody's gone, why would you ever check on them?
Yeah. So like, none of these people really have any true guilt.
Other than Maggie Q.
I mean, because she knows that what she did, but she didn't mean to.
And she tried, and I mean, assuming the fantasy played out a little bit like, I don't know what she did in the real thing, I guess, because we only see the fantasy. But in the fantasy, she's definitely trying to help him. I mean, I think you're just supposed to be like Lucy. I mean, like I said, it's very classic, like, slasher villain. It's the you fucked up my life, so I'm gonna kill all, and I'm crazy.
Right.
So I'm going to kill all of you. And I will say, the last 15 minutes, which is insanely dumb, that was the one point, though, where I was like, okay, this is kind of fun. Just in a horrible way. But like just in a so bad, it's kind of fun. And what it reminded me of, I love these like urban legend kind of endings. Like, if we sim this, we'll do a ding, ding, ding outtake, I'm pretty sure, over Lucy Hale, because that was straight up Rebecca Gayheart.
Yeah.
You know, the bug eyes and just... And just, I don't know. That's a trope that I sadly love. In a movie that's already bad. You know, it's like you might as well just go batshit insane. And, maybe it doesn't go far enough. And it's not good.
No, if that's the case, I feel like this movie should have been more like Club Dread then, where it's more comedy.
Maybe, yeah.
There's horror to it, but there's comedy in it.
Like I said, I think the twist. I think that twist is interesting enough. Like, I think that was because I wasn't expecting that. Like, they're all in somebody else's fantasy. There has to be a way to do that, because I think that's interesting.
No, that is interesting. It just didn't do the job here.
Not at all. And also, you've got to deal with all this boring shit leading up to it, because they've got to establish all these other fantasies that we don't care about. With the exception of occasionally, like, you have like Kim Coates show up, and he's kind of fun. I mean, I wasn't like bored by any means, but it's dumb. It's really dumb.
Yeah. Okay.